All right. Well, good evening. It's Kim from Bookmarks and Breadsticks here to celebrate my 1 year on BookTube. And also, this is the last live/video I have before I go on a nice, well-needed 2-week break while my husband and I move to our new house. So it's 9:30 where I am Central Time. I won't pretend I can memorize everyone else's time zones, but as you can already see behind me, we've already started to get ready to move. So it's been a little bit of organized chaos over here. But yeah, I think part of what I wanted to do with this video was if questions came in the chat, amazing. Hi, Danny. If not, I also have the not so new BookTube tag, which I thought was a great way for those who are new to my channel to get to know me a little bit better. So the first question on the not so new BookTube tag is, how old is your channel? As of today, I have a watch. I guess I could look at my phone. As of today, my channel is, I think, just shy. I think my first video technically went up May 12th, but I'm at a year. And I've learned a lot. I didn't realize it, but I think I've uploaded over 100 videos, which means I've been pretty consistent on the 2 video a week cadence, which I never thought I'd be able to do having a full-time job. I also didn't think I would have that much to say. I know, Josh, I am up late. It's way past my bedtime. Actually, you're up late. It's 10:30. I'm just kidding. It's 10:30 where Josh is. Such a troll through and through, but I love you. Second question, what are your favorite videos to make? So my favorite videos to make are actually my book duos, where I do get to compare 2 different books of a similar topic or similar authors. I actually have one that's scheduled coming out in the next 2 weeks. That's about 2 different books about food and poison, which is dastardly and dark, but it was a lot of fun. I'd like to do more of them. I've also horrifically neglected my sweet series, which is books about sweet foods in the world. I think the last one I did was about fluff and another about candy. There have been some great memoirs that have come out from pastry chefs that I'm excited to read. Danny's coming in with the hard question, which is, what is your favorite food book? My heart. My heart. If I really had to pick one, Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain is the book that changed my life and took me on this journey of this genre. I didn't even know food writing was a section of Barnes and Nobles until I found that book. And then I found that book, and then I started watching all of Anthony Bourdain's shows, like Parts Unknown, The Layover, etc. And then I started to build up his bibliography, excuse me. And from there, it just continued to grow and grow. I have a really great tag called the Ideal Bookshelf tag that goes into detail with some of my other favorite books, like Danny Meyer's book about being the rules of engagement for being a good front of house manager. That's not my favorite book, but it was one of the first books I read when I moved to Chicago. And when I moved to Chicago, I moved here before Dan, my husband, could get here. And it was a book I remember reading alone on the couch, but it was really what got me back and reinvigorated my love of reading. Oh, hi, the bibliotherapist. I hope things are good. How are things going? Things are going well. As you can see, we're getting ready to move. It's a little chaotic. We kind of take it day by day. So there are definitely wins and there are definitely losses. I'd say right now the big win is that the sellers who have not vacated our house are finally willing to negotiate. I think now that we've essentially threatened to sue them, they're actually getting ready to leave finally. So that's a win. Another win is I actually just got to meet my boss and my coworker for the first time. So obviously we are in a global pandemic. I was hired remotely. So I've been working for Halo Top Ice Cream for almost a year. I'm at 10 months right now, and we're all vaccinated and we all had outdoor lunch for the first time. And it was nice to, just how you guys really only see me in this space, so does my boss and my coworkers. And obviously I'm the classiest person ever, because the first thing I said when I met my director was, "You have legs." I know. I know. I really said to my boss, you have legs. Like, problematic. Like, what if my boss was in a wheelchair and I didn't know that? Or like, what if this was a disabled bodied person? So anyway, she found it hilarious and she laughed. So thank goodness they understand my humor. Oh my gosh, it was quite it's quite embarrassing, honestly. Third question in this tag. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone wanting to join BookTube? Like, who am I to give advice, really? And all of the advice feels super cliche, which is like, just do what you love, and keep doing it. I think when I joined BookTube, I was very nervous about being hyper niche. So I'm a nonfiction book, I'm a booktuber, I'm a nonfiction booktuber, I'm a food booktuber. And I just kept at it and just slowly have grown this audience. And I mean, I got a lot of love when Olive over to Book Olive put me on her list of 10 booktubers to watch. It brought in almost doubled my subscriber count. So I'm not saying, stay persistent. Someone's going to love your content and give you a shout out, and it will mean the world to you. Let me look back in the chat. Have you traveled? And if so, what's your favorite dish when you travel? Okay. Dan and I, before the pandemic, went to Ireland in March, and we were wandering around Dublin, and we walked into what looked like a little deli, and it was like an Italian deli, and I'm really not selling it well. But all I remember was just being whisked into the little corner booth of this restaurant, and we just ordered, I think, like slices of meat and bread. At the time, I didn't know I was gluten sensitive, so whatever, retrospect. And it was just one of those moments where we just let it happen. It wasn't, let me examine this menu. Is this a 3 Michelin starred restaurant or even a 1-star restaurant? It was, we found this hole in the wall. We sat down, and the waiter and waitress were charming. The food was delicious. We got really good coffee too. I couldn't even remember the name of the place. Dan might be able to remember the place, but I certainly don't. And it was just one of my favorite things I've ever eaten abroad. One of my least favorite things I've ever eaten abroad. I've been to Ireland twice. The first time I didn't go with Dan. I went with my film school. I actually tried blood sausages. Not my thing. And it's not the idea of ingesting blood that upsets me in any way. It looks basically like a really, really, really dark roasted sausage. It was just really gross. Oh, wait. Danny, you were in Dublin in May of 2019. We might have been there in March of 2019. How crazy is that? And yeah, I think it was somewhere near O'Connell Street, but I'll never remember. But I think that's the best part of travel. It's like, I want a memory that makes me nostalgic, and I don't need to critique anything. All right, I'm just scrolling back up. Give me a sec. What is your favorite dish? And then second favorite person. We know Anthony is your favorite. Okay, that's fair, Josh. My second favorite chef writer. Hot take, it's not Michael Pollan, which a lot of people love that guy. Well, that's hard because, like, do I pick just a memoir or a book I really, really loved, or do I pick a food person that I just love in general? I really have to give credit to David Chang's memoir, Eat a Peach, and the level of details into for his mental health and his mental health journey, I thought was really important. They don't talk about it enough. Usually, like, I feel like in the 90s and 2000s, when the Celebrity Chef was first starting, it was like, yeah, man, sex, drugs, rock and roll, hooking up with the waitress. And David Chang's like, no, I was insanely successful, and then I had a mental breakdown. So I appreciate David Chang. A female chef, because I want to give representation to female chefs. I think Dominique Cren's story is wonderful. She was essentially an orphan that was adopted, and like later in life decided she was going to become a chef, which was not, female chefs are in general minority, but in the French culture are also very much looked down on. Okay, and I have to pick one more. So I've done David Chang, I've done Dominique Cren. Someone who I wish in the food world would write a book, I would like Tom Colicchio to write a book. So if you don't know Tom Colicchio, he has been the head judge of Top Chef for, Jesus, all 19 seasons. He is also the owner of Gramercy Tavern in New York City. He was a protege under Danny Meyer, and he kind of revolutionized like this new American cuisine, like pub food. How everyone's like, I love going to a nice like bar and getting good pub food and that kind of chill ambiance. Tom Colicchio was one of the first people to do that. Tom Colicchio is also a big advocate for getting rid of tipping and paying front of house and back of house the same wage, a livable wage. Tom Colicchio does a lot for fighting for workers' rights in the restaurant industry. He's been doing a lot of work during the pandemic. And Tom's got cookbooks, but I want to know more about him. His sons, his children are fully grown. And I don't know, I give kudos to a man who's been able to stay married to his wife in this rather dire industry. So Tom Colicchio needs a book. I also want Padma Lakshmi to write another memoir. We're up until about timeline of life, like up until the 2010s. Her daughter Krishna was maybe 5 years old by the end of the book. Her daughter Krishna is now 14, 15. So I would love more of that. Ooh, I gotta scroll back up. I did Josh's question. Tom, yes, Danny knows Tom. Is there a cuisine or area of food you want to know more about? The default is Persian cuisine. I would love to actually be able to cook my dad's food, but let's put that aside. I would like to learn more about South American cuisine besides tacos, carne asada. I know like the very beginnings of it. And I've also just begun to learn about the idea of sweet and heat down in Latin America, South America. So I'd love to learn more about it because I love the mix of sweet and heat. A food you wish didn't exist. Stuffed bell peppers. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, everyone. Charming. Stuffed bell peppers. I remember sitting at like my best friend's house in childhood, and his family was really strict. You couldn't get down from the table until you finished your food. And I'm trying to finish stuffed bell peppers. I think they are horrible. I hate them. I hate them so much. Oh my God. It's just upsetting me. I think I've caught up. I have one other. What is your favorite food dish? My favorite food dish in general is tahdig. Tahdig is the crispy rice at the bottom of a pot. It's very, very traditional in Persian food. That's one of those things like tahdig, you want it to be like golden. Like, or imagine like the perfect golden marshmallow color. That's what you want your tahdig to be. I was the kid that if my mom burnt tahdig, which you really easily can do because it overcooks quickly, I would eat the burnt stuff with my dad. Like, I'll eat tahdig any day of the week. It has like no nutritional value. It is rice with a layer of like oil to crispify it. And then you put butter and salt on it. Some people do put potato slices at the bottom of the pot for tahdig. I think that is disgusting. It's not, but to each their own. Fine, they're wrong, but it's fine. Let me jump back over to the not so new BookTube tag. Since joining, have you run into any foreseen challenges? Y'all just go see the I need a break video. I think the only other unforeseen challenge is the fear and pressure. Hi, Abby, who's saying hi from work. An unforeseen challenge, I think, is not falling pressure or getting discouraged with, like, I didn't think I'd have such FOMO or like the fear of missing out when literally a lot of the people I follow are just all about fantasy. They're all about romance books. They're all about sci-fi. And I'm like, should I really try? Should I like, what? Maybe I should read a really popular book to get likes and reviews. And I didn't expect to feel that kind of pressure. I have started to read fiction, but it's still food books. Like, it's still about food. So that felt like a very good compromise for me because it's still stuff I enjoy reading. So when I read With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, that's a popular book, but it's still all about a girl who wants to go to cooking school. That still felt very authentic to me. And that's kind of the middle ground. I also, to overcome that kind of pressure, I started to do buddy reads this year. And it's been a lot of fun. And everyone has been reading food writing books. Like, that was our partnership so far. And now I'm hoping to reciprocate that. And actually, Danny and I want to do another read. I know Amanda, the Curly Reader, wants to do a read, and I want to be more open and challenge myself. So that's an authentic way to like tiptoe my way out of my hyper niche, if that makes sense. Oh, you can't see, but I have a cat next to me on the floor who's just staring at me. So that's adorable. Last meal. Oh, I don't know. Like, am I an able-bodied person at my last meal, or can I like only eat mush? Because if I can only eat mush, I want gluten-free mac and cheese, and not the kind from the box. I mean, like in the pan from the oven with the crispy goodness on top. I'm good with that. If I could eat whatever I want and I'm an able-bodied person, I would kebabs and rice, which is a very traditional Persian dish that I grew up eating with a Greek salad next to it, because Greek food, Mediterranean food, and Middle East can't kind of intersect. So I always grew up with, you ate a salad, then you would get a heaping plate of rice with kebabs off the grill that my dad would cook, and then you'd finish and there wouldn't be dessert, there'd be tahdig. Let's see. God, you guys have good questions tonight. Thank you. I was like, maybe no one will show. That's why I have the BookTube tag ready. So this makes me feel loved. Thank you. What is an early food memory that sticks with you? Could that be the time I ate myself sick and then threw up in the restaurant bathroom? I mean, that's a horrific moment, but I didn't eat. It was bad. Oh, the first time my dad got me to eat calamari. The calamari was breaded, and my dad lied and told me that it was chicken nuggets. And that worked for me. I loved it, right? A good memory. So I loved the calamari, and I was very surprised. And I remember because we were at Macaroni Grill, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Macaroni Grill, but the table, they lay paper on top of it, white paper, and they give you crayons. So like I don't know why, but it was like a family reunion. My mom is one of 6. So I just remember the table had 15 people long, and I was like very young in the cousin group. So I'm like under the age of 10, and I'm with like my older cousin who like I looked up to. He's a BMX biker, or retired now. And like we're doodling, and that's how my dad tricked me into eating calamari. He tried the same thing with my younger sister, and she pulled the breading off when she bit it, and she got the calamari that looks like a tentacle, and she shrieked in the middle of Macaroni Grill. Oh my God, it was amazing. It was so funny. I still love calamari to this day. I think that's a great trick to get kids to eat new food. So every time, like, we used to order pizza and like from this one place down the street where I grew up as a kid, and my dad would always get calamari, and my dad and I would be the only people who would eat it. And when like you're one of 3 and you're the middle child, it's so nice not to like, fight for food. Everyone fight for yourself, fend for yourself. It's fun. I love that calamari story. My little sister does not find it nearly as funny as I do, but I think it's freaking hilarious. How did you and your husband meet? Do you want the real version or the fake version we tell people? Dan and I actually met when we were in undergrad of college through mutual friends at a house party. So Oswego is a small college town that's not known for anything but for partying. And we actually met like at a party, and we like were just circled each other as friends for like 4 years. I graduated early. I took a really big internship in New York City, and I was like, I'm a New York City girl. I'm a new woman. My first love in college broke up with me and then was very toxic. So I left school early to take this internship. I lost some weight, and then I came back, and I was like, I'm amazing. And we like circled each other more, but now we were on each other's radars. And then finally, like, this is a long courtship, guys. And then finally, when I moved to Queens after school, Dan drove from Western New York down to New York City, which is like a good like 6 to 7 hour drive, to come to my housewarming party. In retrospect, I was like, I don't know if this guy likes me. My friends were like, the guy drove like 6+ hours to come see you. Yes, he likes you. And then we've been together over 8 years now, and just got married this past September. And he's laughing down the hall because that's the PG version of how we met. Oswego parties are ragers. We'll leave it at that. You can have your own creative imagination, but it's been a nice, like, can I say long relationship is 8? I feel like 8 years. So you can say it's been a long courtship, and he's laughing down the hall. So I'll leave it at that. Let's see. What is your favorite book or series you've read because of BookTube? I'd say a few books I've read that I've gotten recommendations from other booktubers that I liked. I'm currently reading An Entangled Life, and it's a book all about fungus, like mushrooms, and I never thought I was going to like it. It's more nature science than food, but it is like tangentially related that I'm really enjoying. And I read With the Fire on High, which is young adult fiction written in prose by Elizabeth Acevedo, and that was awesome. I'm really glad I expanded and tried something new. Overall, what is your favorite aspect about BookTube? This is so like cliche. I like that you can have your own lane and you can do what you want. I love Danny's 60-second reviews because sometimes I only have, 2 to 3 minutes between work meetings and I can pop one of those on. I also love wrap-up videos. I love on Olive's channel, a Book Olive, she does a whole series, What's the Story Wishbone? And she compares the actual book to the episode of Wishbone from PBS, which makes me super happy. Do you grow any of your own food? So we currently don't right now because we're about to move. But one of our biggest joys about having an actual backyard will be a garden. I want to compost. I want to garden. I want to buy local seeds. I want to see if there are heritage seeds we can get our hands on. We did, at the beginning of COVID, have a little victory garden on our balcony. We called it a COVID garden, but a victory garden is like a reference to the American World Wars. And we were able to grow tomatoes. I mean, they were tiny tomatoes. Imagine like smaller than like a ping pong ball, but they were ours, and I was very proud of them. Before I answer this, I do owe winners of the Persian book box giveaway. So I will announce one right now. So thank you everyone who's been commenting on my videos that I started from the end of April till now. That was, as long as you commented, liked, and subscribed, you were entered into a chance to win one of the Read It and Eat Persian boxes. So the first winner, I took everyone's comments and names and then put them in Excel and then used a random generator. The first winner is Katie Reads and Rants. So Katie, I will find your comment on one of my videos and go back and let you know you've won. And you can contact me on Instagram or by email, which I'm bookmarksandbreadsticks@gmail.com, and I'll send your box out. So I should probably put that somewhere in this chat. Give me a sec, guys. Boop. I'll leave that tagged. So now it's on the lower third. Look at me learning on the fly. Okay. Has being on BookTube sparked any interest other than food books or any non-food books that you found out about that you liked? That's a good question. I think being on BookTube and learning more about like the food science world, the nature writing world, has really just doubled down my interest and passion in the local community, locavore, and like environmentalism. So I don't think I've always been really passionate about where my food comes from and knowing where it's come from, but now it's like the next step and the next step. A lot of nonfiction booktubers recently have been reading a lot of books about climate change with good reason. And now I'm like, okay, Dan, let's get solar panels on the house and let's compost. And what else can I do as a single individual to help the planet? Sorry, a loss for words there. I also think seeing a lot of booktubers start their own side businesses, people with Etsy shops for bookmarks, for jewelry, made me a little bit more confident that I should continue to pursue my Read It and Eat subscription box. And if it's a slow build, it's a slow build. And it made me okay with that. It also made me okay with, or open my eyes to, why don't I partner with other small booktubers? Like sending out boxes for review. I was really afraid that everyone was like, oh, you have under 500 subscribers. Who are you? I don't want to do anything. But people have been really responsive. They've been like, yeah, I'll try it. I'll give an honest review. And thankfully, so far, none of the reviews have been bad. Excuse me. Favorite non-booktuber YouTube channel? Oh my God. So there are tons, but I definitely love Mikey Chen from Strictly Dumpling. Mikey Chen is this Chinese-American booktuber. He's a YouTuber, and he travels the world, and he just gets to eat food. And the guy can eat a lot of food. But what I like about Mikey is that throughout the pandemic, he's been very cautious. Like he's like a double mask kind of person. But he would always try to support a local business, your small businesses. And a lot of those small and local businesses have really been hurting during the pandemic. So I appreciate someone who has a large, more than 1 million followers platform, getting to eat, which is just fun to watch, but also supporting smaller businesses that need that kind of publicity, that kind of exposure. There we go. That's the word, exposure. I also like that Mikey, he's traveled the world. He loves like the Asian countries. That's part of his heritage. He goes to different 7-Elevens all over the world. And like 7-Elevens in America just stink. I don't know what else to tell you. You go into a 7-Eleven in Japan, they're like, here's 3 aisles of ramen. You want hot food? Here's the hot food counter. You want slushies? Here's 67 different types. Like Dan and I, our honeymoon, which I feel like it's never going to happen, but it will. We were going to go to Tokyo. We were going to go to Japan in general for our honeymoon. Obviously, COVID, you know. One of the promises we made ourselves was that we were going to have a whole like day's worth of meals from a 7-Eleven. And they also have the competitor to 7-Eleven over in Japan. And I completely forget the name. It's like Family Mart, maybe. And I wanted to do a compare and contrast of that. I think it would be so much fun. Ooh, Cup of TJ. I have never heard of. We'll totally write that down on my other monitor. Cup of TJ. Oh, fun fact. Sometimes I'm watching YouTube videos between meetings at work, or I'm trying to open the browser while I'm on like a Zoom call and just opening it, not watching it, just opening it, or I'm trying to pause like the piano music I'm listening to. I forget that the video audio auto plays when you go to my like Bookmarks and Breadsticks homepage. So many times my coworkers have heard, "Hi, my name is Kim," and they're like, "Hi, Kim," and I'm like, "Oh God damn it! It's ridiculous. It's just bad." If you have other recommendations besides a cup of TJ, keep them coming, because I'm sure between Dan and I, we both love to watch like food and travel bloggers. They're very comforting. So keep those recommendations. Let me announce the second winner. So I have 2 winners for the Bookmarks and Breadsticks Read It and Eat Persian box. That's a mouthful. Amber Pate, could be Pate, is the winner of the second box. Now, if you still want to get your hands on the Persian-themed box, which has the graphic memoir Persepolis from Marjane Satrapi and the Persian Trail Mix, which is delicious, you can still buy that on my website at Books and Bread. The current summer box theme is an ice cream-centered box with a food memoir about a food journalism. The author basically gets to travel America to learn about the history of ice cream, and it's an ice cream box theme, and it's delicious. But that's enough, that's it. That's all I'm going to shamelessly plug about myself. What was the other questions to this tag? Oh, the last 2 questions are who do you tag, and give some shout outs to other booktubers. Well, first, I have to give shout outs to everyone who showed up on the chat tonight. So obviously, if you aren't following Danny over at Spinelli Speaks, go give her a like, subscribe, follow. And the Bibliotherapist, also showing some love for everyone who showed up to the live show tonight. Rosie Cockshook is another friend of mine in the BookTube verse that I highly recommend. Ooh, Alex Steele, English Blackman, super fun to watch, very educational and fun to watch steel being smashed. Ooh, Mark Wines has an amazing channel too. So many authentic foods. He's been to Thailand. He's been in Thailand now. That's amazing. Part of me like kicks myself. Like if I was a different person, if I lived in a different world, like maybe I should have just been working abroad in Europe this whole pandemic. Now, obviously, if you know my channel and my personal circumstances, I would never have done that. But there's some kind of appeal of like the remote vagabond traveling lifestyle that has always appealed to me. And I know I was talking to Andrew over in Get Right On In It, and he's a food travel like blogger. He's written for different newspapers. And sometimes I wonder, like, is that my calling? Should I just be traveling the world, eating and writing about food? And sometimes I don't want it to become work. Like BookTube's a little bit enough of a commitment. But what I have loved about watching BookTubers and YouTubers alike is I gravitate to the YouTuber who is going to advocate for the small restaurant. And that's what I had loved about Anthony Bourdain. Bourdain was not about, he would go eat at the Michelin star place because his friends invited him there. But his favorite places were when he sat at a kid's plastic chair at a kid's table and would just slurp on pho at 7 a.m, hungover with coffee, sitting across from a man that he can't even communicate with, but they just sat in that serenity and that peace. And like, that's the kind of influencer, if you even want to call my small following an influential platform, that's what I want to continue doing, especially as I look to year 2 of BookTube. I want to continue to talk about food writing and culinary nonfiction. I think there are lots of important own voices that don't get the spotlight. Like, I love David Chang, but David Chang is still a male in a male-dominated culinary world. He has a little bit of a bad boy reputation. He did not treat his employees well until he finally sought help and got therapy. So like, I want to talk about female chefs and female owners. And I just read Black, White, and the Gray by Mashama Bailey and John Morisano. That review is coming out in the next 2 weeks. Like, that's a Black female chef. I want more books about those. And that's what I want to pride myself in year 2 doing, is continuing to reach for the outskirts of those smaller voices that are underrepresented and bring them to my channel. She used to do good reviews in New York where books were inspired. Oh, thank you, Danny. What is a trend, a food trend or innovation you read about in food that changed the way you look at and consume food? I think reading The Fate of Food by Amanda Little, I think it's Amanda Little, really changed the way I thought about food and those commercial agriculture farming organizations. They're called CAFOs, basically mass production of cows and pigs. And when I thought about how, two things. First, the book is called The Fate of Foods, or The Future of Food. Hold on, let me use my other monitor. Here I am butchering the poor woman's book. The Fate of Food by Amanda Little. What I liked about the book was it really turned me on to the food waste that's happening with ocean and fish populations. Like, we think about CAFOs for cows and pigs and chickens, and it's all horrible, trust me. But I didn't realize that farm-raised fish are almost as destructive for the environment as overfishing natural fish populations. And it made me, you can't see her, but my cat is like on a shelf, right? Oh, maybe you can. Oh, you gonna come on camera? There she is. That's Peachy. So anyway, it made me wonder what can I do that was sustainable for food that was like aquatic seafood. Oh my God, Kim, I have words. So it made me think about what frozen or like what fish I'm going to buy. And now I'm looking for certain labels on packaging. I'm looking for the statements about what they're doing to offset and help the environment, and etc. That's like I wish I was more articulate about it, but The Fate of Food made me realize it's not only just about the animals on land, but also about sea. Did you ever stop eating a food after reading about it? I would say no, but I will say, like, Dan and I almost never buy meat and poultry at a regular grocery store. We've been buying all of our food in Chicago for about 2 years now from a business called Local Foods that sources all of their food within 200 miles of Chicago, Illinois. And if it's outside of that barrier, they work with companies that have small carbon footprints or are trying to offset their carbon footprint. So a lot of our food, we know, like if you read the package, I know what farm it came from. I know the practices of that farm. Very rarely do I go to like a Jewel Osco or like a ShopRite to buy meats anymore. I just can't stand behind commercially like CAFOs. I can't do it anymore. I don't believe in it. I think it's wrong. Now, I think I talked about this on Feasting Females. It is unfortunate though. So in a country like America, where supposedly the mass growth in CAFOs and industrialization was about wanting to feed everyone at a reasonable price. That's why people are still buying the really low quality chicken, because now Americans, like, we demand this low price, but now we're demanding quality, and the capitalism in the model there don't work right now. And eventually it will collapse in some capacity. That's why you see the rise of the artisan movement, the locavores, and et cetera. But can I objectively stand back and say, if I'm a middle-class family that's got to feed 3 kids, I might not be able to pay $6.99 for a pound of chicken the way I am lucky and privileged enough to do so? Of course, I understand that. I wish I knew more about food politics to, I don't know if I'd ever want to work in the government, but that's can turn you on to that kind of information and help you as one individual make changes in your purchasing behavior. Like, that's all I can ask for. And I think those changes will percolate. Word of mouth is very important to changing those kinds of consumer habits. So besides that, I think the only other trend I've been hearing about is now that scientists are trying to grow lab-grown meat. So it is meat where you take the cultured cells of a cow and clone them. And that way it's meat grown in a lab. You haven't killed an animal. So it makes the vegans happy. You haven't killed an animal. You're reducing commercial agriculture farming. But right now, I think it costs like something like 200 grand to make a single burger in a lab. But the reason it costs so much is that you have to have investments behind the scientific research. Then it has to scale. So it's not something that can happen overnight, unfortunately. But look at Beyond Meat. And I forget what the other, guys, help me out. It's not Beyond Meat. What is the other meatless meat patties that they make now besides Beyond Meat? Anyway, they had to come from somewhere. Like, you have to have buy-in and popularity for things to scale. Now you can get a Beyond Meat burger patty at, I think, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, but that'll have to start somewhere. And I think that's the next thing that's going to happen with lab-grown meat. The other really amazing trend that's happening is lab-grown milk. The idea that we can get away from dairy farms and, thank you, Impossible Burgers. Thank you. The next big trend that's coming is, and I work in ice cream, so this is very pertinent to me, is the idea of lab-treated dairy products like milk. Impossible Burgers, Margaret. I was trying to remember Beyond Meat and who their competitor was. So that's another trend I'm really interested in. Would you, as a consumer, ever eat lab-grown milk? Now, personally, I don't have a problem with it. To me, it gets weird. It gets weird, like milk, lactation. It's meant to help an animal. Technically, we shouldn't even be drinking milk anymore. But what is the role of mankind? And are we tampering with, like, are we playing much of God by creating lab-grown meat? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I have those answers, but I am very interested to alternatives to act like CAFO farming. The other thing is that I think the crop diversity in the world is down to like 2% crop diversity on the planet. And there's like 8 different foods, like crops that grow that make up the majority of the human species diet. And it's like corn, soy, and then a couple other things. We are destroying food diversity and crop diversity, and it makes me super sad when I read about things like that and read about the lost diversity of like different varieties even of corn. Seeds are, yeah, Margaret, seeds are super important. And what was I reading about? That's why large crop failures are in our future. Between global warming and mass production of very limited crops, monocultures, all like, like the potato, everyone thinks like, oh, that'll never happen. It's totally going to happen to us. That's what's going to happen. And it's really sad. And it's not something I'm looking forward to it. Sounds like you just read the Earth Calling book. I haven't yet, but now I need it. I have a different book, Braiding Sweetgrass, that's about seeds that I want to read. And it's just such a shame when I think of like indigenous people that were taken off of their land and moved somewhere else, or even slaves from, the Atlantic slave trade. They would hide seeds in pouches on what little clothing they still had to bring their seeds with them to new countries. Like, the only reason we have sweet potatoes and yams is because of the slave trade. Like, that stuff's horrific. And to think that that kind of rich culture is going to disappear because it's easier for a Latin American farmer to make more money growing a monoculture like corn than to keep their own indigenous crops. Like that's what we're doing to the world. Like I'm really like went off on a rant, I know, but those are trends I'm interested about. When I have my garden in my backyard, I want to grow seeds. Like I want to grow heritage seeds. Oh, one last high horse moment. So the US government has decided that they are going to waive patent rules and copyright rules over the vaccine for COVID, as they should, because the idea that someone's going to make money off a patent for a cure to a global pandemic is scum. So why is it Monsanto, who makes these GMO crops, has a patent on their GMO seeds? So now farmers all over the world are paying annual fees to use seeds because this evil super corporation has a monopoly. That's why like people are getting penalized for growing native and heritage seeds because of Monsanto. And that's the stuff that I can't understand. And that definitely falls into agriculture, ag government. I thought at one point I was going to get like a third master's and go into that. And then Dan looked at me and was like, do you really need to do that? And I was like, no, that's a good point. It's a lot of money. But that's, sorry, that's the end of my tangent. There's a lot of really crazy things going on. And all I can really hope is that my channel is fun, but also informative. If I can encourage you to go to a farmer's market once a month and you never did that before, like that's amazing. Yes, those type of famines have already happened. They've been all over the news. I think India's suicide rate is like over, like the main cause of suicide in India are male Indian farmers committing mass suicide because they cannot sustain their families on farming because there's so much pressure from the global economy to grow specific crops. Like, there's a lot of terrible things going on. This became a real downer. I apologize. Oh yeah, I know. We could loudmouth and yell at Bayer for buying Monsanto. It's all very, it's all bad. So I have a new message on bookmarks and breadsticks. Sorry, I have like 4 different. Are there any positive trends or rays of hope that you've seen in your books that you've come across vis-a-vis the current future of food? I do think that there is hope for the future of food because I do think the locavore movement is happening. The Me Too movement needed to happen, but it really cracked down hard in the culinary world. A lot of very famous chefs got canceled and rightfully deserve so. Mario Batali, I'm talking to you. And if anything, the pandemic has really brought up conversations of fair wages for both front and back of staff. Thanks, Margaret. The idea that even if you are an essential worker, you deserve to have a livable wage. And a lot of that front of house staff is primarily women. They're trying to raise children. They need health insurance. So a positive trend is that COVID happened and it's been awful. But a lot of people are finally just sitting back and going, I'm not coming back to work. I'm making more money on unemployment and I can get unemployment health care versus what shitty McDonald's is paying me. I'm not going back. And the world is going to have to change because of it, especially in America. Like you don't tip when you go to France. You don't have to because they're paid livable wages. They look at you funny when you tip. Versus here, servers have to almost rely on those tips to make rent. So there is a future trend I'm hoping to see. To Dan's question in the chat, I have a lot of hope that we're going to see good reform happen for workers in the restaurant industry. Oh, I know. I'm so close to 500, but it's okay. Like it was just a goal. Goals can change. What did I get? The 488, I think. Yeah, 488. Still super happy. Any last questions? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up and go enjoy the next 2 weeks off and moving. Going once. Going twice. Okay, if you haven't already, I would love for you to hit like and subscribe below. As I said, I am taking 2 weeks off. I actually have some pre-scheduled content that'll say premiere, so you guys know that I'll continue to be posting. I'll be back May 22nd for a live show with Feasting Females. And Margaret and I also have a live chat at the end of this month talking about Sour Grapes by Jenny Zong, which is a collection of short stories. Oh, the last question. Oh gosh, you all came in with questions at the end. What does the next year hold for Bookmarks and Breadsticks? I am actually going to be investing pretty heavily in the Read It and Eat subscription box and really help trying to grow it in the local Western New York audience. But for Bookmarks and Breadsticks as a YouTube channel, I want more buddy reads. I want to continue to work on getting more ARCs from publishers. And I'm hoping to do more readathons and really expand myself. And do I have a sweet treat planned for the B-Day? Not today. Dan and I have dance and I'm volunteering tomorrow and we'll probably make something sweet. I really want gluten-free brownies, but I don't want a whole tray of them. So I have to see if I can buy like a single brownie somewhere. Because if the whole tray is in front of me, I will eat that whole tray and I'll be very mad at myself. But with that, I hope you are all well. Thank you for joining me on a Friday night. Be well, wear a mask, and I will see you in a couple weeks. Thanks, everybody. Good night.